We see time and time again in Christians this unwavering gratefulness towards God for the way in which he sacrificed his only son to save mankind. It's always explained to us that God needed to use a pure soul, one that had never sinned, to allow for mankind to be redeemed for the original sin of Adam, thus reforming the communion between God and humanity in the blood of the new covenant, and Jesus served as his sacrifice. Yet, if we take a step back and look at what this ideal proposes, it paints a completely different picture of what Christians are applauding. Because if God is omnipotent, which the Bible and most Christians state he is, he never needed to sacrifice the life of his son to absolve mankind of its sins anyway. He could have simply forgiven us, as there are no restrictions on someone with omnipotence. The word itself actually means all-powerful, being able to do anything with no restrictions, arguing strongly that the whole act of sacrificing his son was a pointless farce, thus leading seamlessly into the undeniable fact that in reality Christians are thanking God for killing his son for no particular reason, because with a snap of his fingers he could have quite easily done what his son shed both his blood and life for. What also makes this such a travesty is the fact that God is also omniscient, holding knowledge of all things. So he would have known that this level of filicide could have been completely avoided, and yet he still chose to do it, pointing to a God who is either callously malevolent or just incredibly idiotic for someone who apparently knows everything. And speaking of omniscience, one can quite easily ponder the actions and inactions of God in other respects, such as how from the very beginning, way back in Genesis, he already knew that Satan was going to successfully tempt Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge by promising her the prospect of wisdom, presenting a large factor regarding the act of man and the responsibility of God that Christians should think long and hard about. This being that there was no shocking, unpredicted betrayal committed by mankind. God knew what the outcome would have been already, and yet simply stood by and let humanity be doomed. And you can argue for day and night that God had to preserve free will by not interfering, and this makes what he did okay. But that's much like if you said it was okay if a parent stood by and merely watched as their child was thrusting a butter knife at an active electrical outlet.